All right. Now that we've all got that. All right. So I would like to welcome you all to our October Maker Roundtable. So for those of you who didn't hear Naomi say at the very beginning, this is a very casual group. We have a light agenda just to kind of check in and talk about what's going on, discuss any problems that people may have. We always like to throw in a couple of resources for folks. But because today we have such a large group of students, oh, and Andrea, you're going to have to remind, University of Pittsburgh, right?
Actually, these students are from Johnson and Wales University.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I was looking at Dan Ding. So tell me again.
So all the students that are here are in their second year of their occupational therapy program at Johnson and Wales University, and they're presently taking a course called Tech and Innovation, where they're learning about assistive technology, but also have been teamed up with a person with a disability who's agreed to sort of help with this brainstorming process and to perhaps have an AT solution created for them in the spring semester, working with additional students here at Johnson and Wales from our engineering and design programs.
All right, thank you for that. And welcome all the students. So what I'm going to do in the interest of time is to say, that was your introduction, but for the few of us that are not students, I'm gonna, we'll do a quick introduction. I'm Scout. I work at Missouri Assistive Technology, and I kind of co-host this group with Mike Murata and Naomi from the New Jersey Assistive Technology program. And we've been on a break for the summer, and now we are back. And glad to be back. It's nice to have some familiar faces and lots of new faces. I'm going to go ahead and let the folks, Bill, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Bill Janes. I'm an occupational therapist on faculty at the University of Missouri. I'm our academic fieldwork coordinator, which is just another half of my life. But then I also run the Assistive Technology Adaptation and Training Lab here. We work, among other projects, we work in our local ALS clinic, providing custom and customized AT devices for people who may need them. Usually pretty low-tech stuff, more daily use devices. We have other folks who deal with AAC devices and mobility devices, stuff like that. But a lot of the makers making change type 3D printable devices. And we just got a grant within the last week from the ALS Association to expand that service across the entire Midwest chapter, a 3 or 4 state region, to start sending devices out to folks who need them.
That's awesome. All right, Patrick, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
I don't know if I'm crashing your party or not. My name is Pat Kitzman. I am a physical therapist at the University of Kentucky, and I oversee a newly forming Appalachian Center for Assistive Technology, of which we will be serving as one of the maker spaces for the AT resource centers in Kentucky.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I'm really glad you're here. You are not at all crashing. This is, like I said, what it's for. So you're saying this is a new space?
Yes. Yes, we were brought online this summer, actually, and we are pulling all of our equipment together. We have worked out in Eastern Kentucky for the better part of 15 years, and we've been part of AT4All doing the refurbishing reutilization program. So we've been providing wheelchairs, walkers, all of that rebuilding for many years now. And then we have now moved officially as one of the AT resource centers, and we will be serving Appalachian Eastern Kentucky.
Nice. And so is your makerspace new?
Yes.
Okay. And if I'm just curious, what are you all doing with that space. So 3D printing, I'm assuming.
3D printing, we have one of the Glowforge 3D laser printers. We have vacuum formers, and then being a PT, I am much more comfortable with wrenches and sockets and everything else. So we strip down, we build, and we get creative. And we also are currently working with the local high schools and engaging them in the area of adaptation and disability. And our new program is made up of students of all abilities. So that is the fun part. So a lot of our consumers are also the ones who are driving some of the innovative ideas for us.
Of course, I mean, and really just like the students are doing, that is the way to do it. There have been many times I'm in my office saying like, what needs to be done, you know? And it is odd to create in a vacuum, and it's much easier to create for an actual need instead of some idea that, you know, somebody with full motor function in their hands might say, what do I do with? So that's cool, and to have them be heavily involved is the way to go.
Yeah, and I also work heavily with the engineering students here on main campus here in Lexington. So it's kind of fun playing with students on a bunch of different levels.
Yeah, well, I think you've joined us on just the right day, because it sounds like what you're doing is what a lot of the rest of our group will be doing. And like you, I am much more comfortable with hardware than software. You know, but we do what we do.
Yep.
So, you know, I am interested. Is there anybody else who's then not a student that's with us? Or not?
I'm not a student. This is Josh Barton.
Hi, Josh.
Hello. So I am the new state consultant for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction for Assistive Technology. And this was a new position that our Department of Public Instruction created last school year. So I began there in January, and I'm trying to get some maker initiatives going. I submitted a request last year actually to try to get a 3D printer, because a lot of our schools across the state have access to them. And to me, it's one of those resources that we could be using in a more innovative fashion when considering assistive technology. So my hope from today was just to get some more information on what that's looking like, and so I can rebuild my case. It was initially denied, but I'm hoping to be able to like demonstrate, like, we've got this resource. It would be way cheaper for some of our PSUs to look at building stuff if we are printing it versus other options, or building it in other capacities. So
yeah, well, if any of the students are using key guards, I mean, right there is you're going to save money on key guards. And it's unfortunate that Ken couldn't join us today. I don't know if I can pronounce his last name, Hackenbarth. Am I right, Bill? Something like that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, but Ken and maybe Naomi can throw his contact in. I don't know if you can, Naomi, into the chat. He would have great arguments for why you should get a 3D printer and have it be accessible to students. And his website is full of great resources. In fact, you know, one of us will get that into the chat. His website is Volkswitch, and it is you know, Volks is like for the people, and everything he does is free of charge. He's just a really great resource. There it is, Ken at Volkswitch and volkswitch.org. Thank you, Naomi.
thank you.
Yeah, I really recommend checking out his website, connecting with him if as needed. And then, you know, Bill can probably, I'm going to offer him up too, can probably tell you more about cool things. I am still working on my own proposal to get a 3D printer. But I don't think my hurdle sounds as high as yours. Just depending on which one I want. All right. So there's my full disclosure. I am not 3D printing. I'm an AT maker who is not 3D printing. If any of the students, just another resource for you, if you're not familiar with Therese Wilkham and her books and her work, she is not a 3D printer, but she's really good at looking at a problem and coming up with creative solutions. Bill's probably pulling something. I actually have one of my books on my desk. Oh, nope. Where is it? Can't get there.
Yeah, my copy of that is down in the lab. It's
Yeah.
what, make stuff and love people. Is that
Yeah.
it? I'm really
Yes,
good at half of that.
This is Make Stuff and Love People, which yeah, there it is. So if you have a chance to look at that, or
Scout, I put up Teresa's slide presentation. I attended her workshop last fall after this came out. And so you do all the students, you do have access to the information about this book. And I also have it in my office if you want to borrow it. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy it.
No, and I'll tell you the introduction, if you can take 3 minutes and read how she came up from the title, the stuff about the title is probably the funniest. Well, it's definitely the funniest part of the book, but it's a very fun couple minutes. And Teresa's like kind of business, so this is a different side of her, in my opinion. But her books, Assistive Technology Solutions in Minutes, and I think Assistive Technology Solutions in Minutes 2 are worthwhile if you're looking for those. So just a couple of different ways to think about making stuff. Makers making change. So the 3D printing information, there's a lot out there. There we go. There's a lot of resources out there for 3D printing. So if you need any of those, and Lori has joined us. Hi, Lori. Hey, Lori, we have a lot of students here today.
Hello.
If you want to take a second and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Okay, you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, I am Lori McGowan. I am the Assistive Technology Specialist for Bancroft in New Jersey. I have my bachelor's is in elementary ed, special ed, preschool, and my master's is in assistive technology and AAC. This is year 17 as an AT specialist. So, and I have over 21s now. I've had preschool, I've had school age for decades, and now I am in an over 21 program.
And Lori, I'm gonna throw this out there since you're joining us a little late. We have a lot of students here that are working on a class project where they're teaming up to help an individual with an assistive technology need. And so I'm gonna, I guess, throw it out there for any of us that are not this group of students. If you want to put your contact information in the chat, maybe just email. That way, if any of you guys want to reach out to any of us, like
Absolutely.
Lori said,
Absolutely.
lots of experience with lots of different ages. And, you know, it sounds like we have some really good variety of capacity. And the thing for the students, in my opinion, to know is that, you know, you've got an instructor who's going to help you. You've got lots of collaboration, but more minds can be beneficial. So if you guys come up to a roadblock and you want to reach out to Lori or Bill, or I'm going to offer up Patrick, or wait, I lost you. Oh, or Jake, no, not Jake. Josh. There we go. You know, if you want to reach out and just ask somebody a question, you know, just, I would say, don't be shy. That's why we're here, is because we are people that are interested in sharing. So, you know, feel free.
Happy to help, and the only way you learn how to do something new is to, give it a whirl.
Okay. Yep. So try, fail, try again. We've all been there. So I'm gonna just ask you guys now, anything that you want to share or bring. So if any of you have met with your participant yet, that you want to talk about, that, you know, things you're thinking about, or tell us about what kind of background you bring to the table. I know asking for someone in a group to start talking is sometimes tricky, unless Palma is raising her hand. Are you?
Yeah, I am. Okay, our individual has multiple sclerosis. Basically, he has just function of his head. He uses technology for everything else. Some of his ideas so far is putting on or removing a jacket or cape to go outside in cold weather, to put on or remove a ball cap or knit cap, and to put on or remove sunglasses or prescription glasses.
Nice. And do you have any ideas yet for what you might try to tackle?
I do not know. Probably, hopefully something easy. It's like, I don't think we could do a whole robotic thing at this moment, but trying to find something that's easy-ish. I don't really know where to go from there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So he has no movement, no arm function.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and I would say, you know, my first thought is like dive into some of Teresa's books.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm getting some nods that you know, he certainly has a fair amount of assistance in his life, I'm guessing. And there are lots of things. I was just going through the book over the last couple of days because I've come across a huge stash of corrugated plastic cardboard, and I had kind of stopped with that because I didn't have a resource for it. And then I went to a festival and got like 30 of these huge signs. I may have had to jump into a dumpster and pull them out, but you know.
Worth it.
Totally. It was roots and blues. And not that you're going to use that, but you know, that's why I was re-going through the book, and I think there are things in there that you might find useful. So yeah, Team Mitch. All right. So has anybody else met with their what are you calling them, your participants? Or know what they
Gina?
might.
You have a raised hand.
Oh, great. Gina. Unmute.
Trying to figure it out. My laptop just recently broke, so I'm using an iPad and figuring out how to do everything through an iPad. So we're actually meeting with our child on Friday, and he was diagnosed with global developmental delay due to an absent corpus callosum. one of the things that they talked about in the little blurb that we read about him was trouble with feeding. It also says that he uses a prox pad to communicate. Additionally, like he benefits from like sequential instruction. And I kind of want to just get pointed into the direction of what we should be asking. Maybe what should we ask the family? What do you think, from knowing like he's a 7-year-old, knowing that he has global developmental delay, knowing that he struggles with the bilateral coordination and the feeding aspect. It does say that he could bring the food to his mouth.
Right. I read that, but what did it say? Can bring the loaded spoon to his mouth. Oh, he struggles with scooping it. That's what it was. So he can actually get the food into his mouth, but not the action of picking it up. So interesting. I mean, honestly, my thought with that, and I hate to keep giving out other people, but at some point, if they're Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think of Judith Schoonover with this kind of grouping of interventions that he kind of needs.
Yeah, that sounds right in her wheelhouse. Sorry.
Yeah, she's on Twitter. I think it's spelled kind of how it sounds. Yeah.
Do you mind leaving that in the chat?
I would have to look.
I'm
It's
looking it
okay.
up right now. I'll
It's
get it.
okay if it's incorrect. I can maybe try to piece it together, but just to give myself like a little head start, maybe.
Yeah. Or
Thank you.
do you know her contact, Bill?
I just put her Twitter in the chat.
Oh, look at that, Judith Schoonover.
Something
Yeah.
I would think about too, Gina, is to actually watch him perform the task whenever you go and visit with him so that you can do a bit of an activity analysis. And if he has the range of motion and the ability to bring it to his mouth, it might be that he doesn't have the ability to kind of move his wrist in space. And that could be a motor planning problem, or it could be that he's not stable enough and so it's falling off. And watching it and kind of performing an activity analysis on it will give you a lot of insight to where the breakdown's happening.
Right. And that's one thing that people say, like, my client can do this, but not that. It's like, it's hardly ever enough information without watching it. And so, and maybe even some similar tasks to see what is, what else the issue might be.
Other things to keep in mind: ask the family what they would like to see him do independently, but ask him what he would like to do. I mean, it's like the most important thing. Sorry, I'm getting. Oh.
Yeah.
Where I'm, excuse me, so I know that they want to kind of look at the feeding aspect. I'm assuming with global developmental delay, because it's kind of just like an overall delay in development. There's going to be other issues too. For what in your experience have you seen for technology in regards to like global developmental delay?
Who are you? Are you asking any of us?
Yeah, just like what have you seen be used with global developmental delay so that I can maybe think about like what.
It's kind of a hard question to answer because it depends a lot on like in what context or toward what end. So if we're talking specifically about feeding, I don't know that I know that I have never worked with anyone who meets the description that you gave there exactly. And so a lot of feeding stuff has been more on sensory aversions and interventions there, along with often global developmental delay. So those have focused a lot on, this is cliche as an OT to say, but it's important, a strengths-based approach. So starting with what can you do well, and plan those early successes and plan some early controlled failures. So if you know from a written report, and forgive me, I don't know the background here, how much you've met this person or know, if you know that they can, at least on paper, bring spoon to mouth, great, have them show you that. Load the spoon, here you go, let's see. To do that activity analysis that Andrea described, and see where those breakdowns occur, and then you go from there. So I hate to give a non-answer, but to say like what works globally for someone with a global delay, I can't until you see exactly what that person has going on.
Absolutely. And it could be that he would benefit from a wide array of assistive technologies throughout his life, not just for feeding. But since that's what they want to focus on, you want to respect that this is what the family's motivated towards. But the thing I would say is to make sure that what you're trying to watch him eat is something he actually wants to eat. That's really, really critical, because a lot of these kids can be very picky eaters. They could have those sensory types of aversions. And if he's not motivated to do it, you won't get to be able to see his true performance.
Absolutely. I was just going to point out what Josh put in the chat of like, what does he like? What does he not like? And I've had folks come in and, they're so focused on one aspect. It's like, well, but does she like, like, what does she like? And the dad actually just kind of stopped, and it was like he hadn't almost considered what drives her. Like how.
And anytime you do anytime you're doing a feeding intervention, starting with play helps a lot. So I don't know the age of this child, but even forget about what would be developmentally appropriate, for most children. If the kid wants to pick up the food and throw it, great, good place to start. It's a good place to start for your activity analysis, looking for those strengths, looking for those areas that could hold them back. If they're like my kids and like dino nuggets, great. We're playing dinosaurs with the nuggets to start, and working up to that feeding, because sometimes you'll get a surprise. So if you start with playing with the food, before you know it, oops, all of a sudden the food might be, the kid might be putting the food in their mouth. Like, make sure you're observing safely and all. But you can find some surprises that way that'll help guide you.
Really good. Really good. Yeah. All right. Yeah. That particular request looked very interesting to me. I will look forward to hearing more about that team. Any other teams want to check in? Yes, Palma.
Just to go back to our group, I'm not familiar with Teresa or the book. Could you just maybe direct me a little bit more on what you were thinking of, or what advice you were thinking of giving?
Oh, she makes a lot of holders for things.
I have it if you want me to hold it up or
Yes,
find a
please.
page. That's what I was doing. So this is
so we've So I wasn't thinking of anything necessarily in particular, but just like there's lots of holders for lots of things.
Yeah, let me
She
get
actually
an example.
has some hooks to help put coats on. What do you got?
Let me take the blur off. It's not going to help anybody.
She's really good at modifying things that are like readily available in your existing space.
No, this is not
in
feeding. This
ways.
is just a grippy thing. So there's how to do it, and she has video, and then there's the end product. All right, just using every walk into Home Depot, walk out with what you can make.
Yeah.
Here's a pencil grip type idea.
Okay. Yeah, our
one-
individual.
Does that help? Does that help? Yeah. Sometimes you just need to see a
Yeah,
picture to
the one
understand.
yesterday that struck me is a couple of months ago, I picked up a med pole, you know, for holding like IV.
Mhm.
I was like, certainly the med pole has got to have some really good uses in AT. And then yesterday, as I was flipping through the book, I found that Therese had used one. I don't even remember what it was holding or doing. I was trying to use it to hold an AAC device because the floor mounts are stupid expensive, just ridiculous.
And just so you understand why Scout wants all that plastic cardboard, this lap tray was made out of plastic, corrugated plastic. If you can get your hands on that, even if it's dirty and you can wash it, it's gold.
Okay.
It's
It's
a
like
good time.
$10. They just
When it's a
ordered
good
me-
time of year, there's a bunch of election signs posted all around everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, if you have access to pick that up, there'll probably be a team who could use it. And after an election, they have to get their signs down in a couple of days. So, you go to the loser and call them and say like, hey, do you want help taking your signs down? I was trying to be polite and waited like a week, and this woman's like, oh, I've got one, and it was all cracked up, in some bad part of town. But I've been using that. Yeah, but yeah, it's just all these things like Lori and Josh were saying that are really easy to acquire. Most things. I will say, however, some of the parts in there are a little bit expensive, and I've shied away from using the modular hose because when you're buying small amounts, it's really high priced. When you start buying in quantity, it's more affordable, but most of us don't buy in quantity for a single AT solution. So I've just kind of avoided that myself.
We do have somewhat of a budget so that we can purchase some things, and not everything that you guys put together has to be free. And certainly our engineering and design folks, they have a lot of materials over there too. So you can spend some money on this and it will not come out of your pocket.
Well, then look at modular hose. It's freaking cool.
One of the really cool things about,
go ahead.
sorry, Scout. One of the cool things about Therese is she really focuses on, with a few exceptions of things like modular hose, things that are fast and inexpensive. In her book, there are a lot of QR codes scattered throughout, and those point to YouTube videos of her making whatever the thing is. And she aims for like a minute or less on all of these. So sometimes they're too fast to really understand what in the heck she's doing. But we butt heads pretty routinely because she does not like 3D printing as an AT solution because it's actually relatively expensive and has a real bar to entry.
It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to
It
print
does.
something. You have to go back. But it's a term called rapid prototyping. And even if the item works for them, but isn't long-term feasible durability, what rapid prototyping allows you to do is to make all the mistakes on the cardboard and the PVC pipe before you go investing in things that are more expensive.
And just so that the students know, the two things that you made in class so far were her design. So they made the stylus out of the magic marker or the highlighter. And they also made the business card switch that you guys use to operate the flashlight. So both of those two designs are from Therese Wilcom.
Nice.
I would venture to say too that where her information and book will be relevant and helpful to you will be more so in like a brainstorming capacity. Like you're not going to find a solution for any of the targeted areas of concern, but it may spark an idea or a consideration that'll lead you down a path for that final solution or a possible option to consider for that solution.
Exactly. Thank you, Josh. That's kind of well put. And get you with those materials that like, oh, maybe this could do that. This is a small piece of modular hose. So you can't really tell, it's flexible and it snaps together. And so it can form structure and hold things, and especially if they're not too heavy. Yeah.
I don't know if
Or-
this helps or not, but that's modular hose. This is
Yeah.
modular hose, and it can bend anyway, and you can make it any length by popping the little segments together and apart. Okay.
And there are nice.
Not that we're recommending.
Yeah, there are nice platform pieces that you can hook the hose to, you know, if you need to make some part. Yeah, does any other team have anything else they want to kind of throw out there? I was so interested. I was wondering if any of Team Jonathan had met him or have anything to say. I mean, maybe it's just because he's another child. So Nora or Francesca, anything?
We haven't been able. We haven't been able to meet with him yet.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Looks like he's a real social kid. He can write. Oops, sorry. So has visual concerns. Maybe it doesn't say what he's looking for. He has fine motor issues. Yeah, I will look forward to more on Jonathan. Yeah, there's some really interesting folks in your groups. And so I'm going to guess the rest of you have not met, like nobody's met Fred yet. No, I don't see Sammy, Molly, and Maddie. No, okay. Just to the others who aren't in this, Fred is a military veteran who has a spinal cord injury and worked with Colin Powell for a while. So that should also be interesting. Yeah, Cash and Becca. I don't know. They're all like present interesting, you know, challenges. All right. Anybody else want to add anything about their group?
I think that they'll have a lot more to share when we meet again next month, when everyone's had a chance to connect. So to be
Yeah.
fair, they just kind of got started on this after getting the basics for, you know, the course and understanding the whole process of assessment. And then they had a midterm at the beginning of the week. So that certainly can kind of take people in a certain direction, how they're spending their time, a major midterm exam. So, but I'm sure that before we see you again in November, everyone will have connected with their client and they'll have lots and lots of questions. And I think that this has been a great introduction on how this session will work for the future. And Scout, you also volunteered to be one of our Shark Tank judges. So it's kind of nice that they're getting to meet you ahead of time.
Yeah, I'm actually very honored to be one of your judges. So thank you. And I really look forward to this. I think this is a really great project and a great way, because you'll all be interacting with an individual, but also with the rest of the teams. To me, I've always thought that. Now I'm a big fan of education, don't get me wrong, but I do think that you can learn so much from doing, as opposed to sitting in a classroom opening a book.
I agree with you entirely.
Yeah. Yes, but go forth and conquer your education.
And the other thing is, don't be afraid of failure with this, because like with the rapid prototyping, the whole purpose of that is, okay, it didn't work. How do you redesign it? Okay, redesign this, redesign. There is no right or wrong answer in this. You know, it's just
exactly.
Will it work?
and your first design, even if it works, can be improved upon time and time again. So
Yeah.
here's, okay, I'm gonna like, this is a goofy thing that I've been, oh, my rubber band broke. What happened? I had something else in here. So I have this goofy thing and I'm gonna hold it up, but it has come apart. So, oh, I can't remember how to take my blur off. How'd you do that, Lori?
Go down to the arrow by your video symbol, click on it, and it'll say, it'll uncheck the blur screen.
Oh, right, thank you. Okay, it's been a minute because my office is generally a mess. So I have this wacky base, and in here, and this is a pool noodle on rubber bands. But something happened. I have this little syringe. So I'm going to tell you what this is, because this is just goofy. So the next thing I have is when I left my last job, I got this piece of art. It just says, wherever you go, go with all your heart. And it is by Blake. And Blake and his mom. Blake has very significant disabilities. And so in order to create art, he uses syringes, right? So they're placed and he can squirt the paint out from the syringe. But I think his mom has, and this is a tiny syringe because that's all I could get my hands on. And they probably use feeding tube syringes. Another thing, if you can get it, grab it. And so she was looking for a way that she could set it up and Blake could be more in control. So I made this contraption, put my syringe in here, and then Blake could push the pool noodle and push his own paint out and totally independently. So, you know, that, and this is not an end contract. I mean, I made it so I could even put 3 syringes in, or put one with lots of support. It's not a design that I'm like, hey, I did it, I'm done. It was a place where I started, and so I'm disclosing this goofy looking thing just in like what Lori is saying, putting stuff together and seeing how it works and seeing, okay, how could this be more functional is really the process.
Right.
So.
And Josh's comment in the chat is so true. Absolutely.
Yeah, every time I meet with a team, that's one of the biggest things I try to emphasize is like, it does not matter how many times you've seen like this exact situation before, the likelihood of the solution being the same is almost never the case.
And
Exactly.
as OT students, you don't have to come up with the entire solution. You are going to be working with some engineering and design students who know more about how to configure things and the movement of the objects and all the materials and so on. But you're collecting a lot of really important clinical information and thinking about how to actually help the person perform that task. So together, you're a very powerful team to be able to come up with that solution. So don't feel like you have to know how to design everything entirely, because that's the next step. Understanding some potential ideas, brainstorming with the person about how it might work is really, really where we expect you to be in a month and a half or so from now. These things do take time too.
Yeah.
And like Andrea said, the most important person is the person you're making it for. So ask for his input. Is this working? Did it work? Do you think this will work? Let's try it. How would you think to make it better? You know, they may have an idea of their own, especially whoever has the veteran. He may have some ideas because, you know, obviously because he's older and he has more experience.
Mm-hmm.
Siblings too. I don't want to discount the importance of siblings either, because I had siblings that were elementary school, and the mom and dad really, you know, were stumped, but the sibling came up with a brilliant idea to help their other sibling.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about siblings, our one of our most successful projects from last year that hopefully you guys will get to see as we move forward. One of our students last year, her sister had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and she ended up working in a lab with all the testing and so on that was being done for creating COVID vaccination, was working really long hours, and it was causing her significant problems in using the micropipette device because of her arthritis. And so the student and her team, as well as the design students, came up with an alternative design for the micropipette that could be controlled more with a larger grasp rather than having to just use that little thumb movement. And not only did that help that student, but they're actually thinking about patenting this thing and changing it for all people, because if anybody does this all day long, it's not going to feel good after a while, right? That's a repetitive type injury that can occur. And so not only, again, are they helping that one person, but potentially helping even persons without disabilities who work in that industry. So the impact that you make can be quite significant with these unique designs that you come up with.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, it's, you know, like the curb cut story, you know, it's like just something that works for all of us to have curb cuts that were kind of designed for folks in wheelchairs. Yeah, it's great. I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah, I regularly tell a story about somebody with tremors who, you know, came into my office, and she came in for something else, and I stopped her and I was like, hey, try this writing bird. And it was like a life-changing demonstration for her. You know, she was crying. She just thought it was the best thing in the world. Because I worked in reuse, I was able to give her one. Anyway, all this. And then like a week later, to my eye, a woman came in with the same kind of tremor. I mean, her writing looked exactly the same. And I was like, oh, you have to try this solution. And she tried it for like 2 minutes and she was like, this is junk. This is not for me, you know. And it's just what Josh was saying. It's like, you just never know until you try. And don't be discouraged, you know, if you try the writing bird with 4 people with tremors and it doesn't work for any of them, because that 5th person, it might just be that life-changing piece. But you know, you just have to try it all. All right, well, I am super glad that you guys are all in this class and taking on this project. I think we're probably, unless anybody has anything else, we'll probably head towards wrapping up. We're about 5 minutes till. If, you know, and I will say that those of us that have been doing this for a minute will keep our thinking caps on for good resources for you all. And next month, we will all look forward to hearing a little bit more about your participants. And
I just
anybody
wanted
else?
to say how thankful we are for letting us join your group, and how graciously you've shared all your personal contact information with the students to reach out to you and be available, because certainly more brainstorming is always better, and having a variety of perspectives and experiences is incredibly helpful. So we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it is, I would say, part of the reason we're all here. So, and why we, you know, I'm gonna, at least for me, why I do this work. I wanna bring more people along with me, and I want to learn more. So I'm excited to see what you guys do, so I can then, you know, actually steal some of your ideas to help people that I work with. All right. Well, anybody else have any final comments? All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so make sure you register for next month's meeting. Anyone is welcome. So if you have folks in your communities that are interested in joining, we are happy to have them come. All right. Well, with that, I think I will go ahead and say we will end this, and thanks for coming, and see you next go round.